Hello, everybody. It's Michael Vosbein again with another issue of Drummer Nation Live with my trusty co-host and fantastic drummer, Adam Nussbaum. How you doing, brother?
All good. Nice to be here. Nice to be anywhere.
At our age, it's nice to be anywhere. Brum bum. All right. Well, we have sort of a Seinfeld idea about this show, which is anything's a show. So we have always something in the back of our heads to talk about, and we'll run through some topics and see what's up. First of all, Mr. Nussbaum, you've been traveling. Where have you been?
Well, I was asked to do a workshop and a performance down in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, last weekend, and I did a concert at MTSU with the students, and that was a lot of fun. Did a workshop and also played at Rudy's Jazz Room in Nashville with some of the faculty. Don Alico, wonderful tenor player, a
Great player.
pianist who's living down there now, Pat Coyle,
Great player.
and a very good young bass player named Jacob Jezero. And that was a lot of fun. I sent down a few of my tunes that are pretty easy, and we just had about a 10-minute talk down and hit it and had a good time.
Excellent. I'm sure they were delighted to have you down south there. Now,
I was happy to be there.
it brings up a topic I wanted to ask you about, which is you're a band leader. There aren't a lot of drummers who are band leaders. There are some, and
Well, occasionally.
occasionally, but you do have albums in your own name, and you're. I know you're doing your Lead Belly project, and have done a lot over the years, and so I'm facing that now. I have a trio gig, jazz trio gig every other Saturday at a place, and I hire the guys who are. It's like a loose circle of friends, and I'm finding what are your concerns when leading from the drum set? You're the band leader, but you're at the drums, and to me that means you're not controlling the harmony. You know, there's a lot of things that aren't really in your control, and how do you do that?
Well, a lot of what's in our control is putting a set together. I'm always trying to think of a balanced presentation,
Hmm.
um, trying to be aware of what kind of vibe to put on the tune, what kind of feels, tempos, feels. These things all have a major effect on, the programming in a set. Uh, the sonic choices we make, uh, you can do things with like a quick, nod to somebody. Okay, instead of it just being the standard formation of, head, trumpet, tenor, piano, bass solo, trade fours with drums, maybe a chorus, and take it out. Maybe after the head, you say to the bass player, "You got it." Whatever. Just try to create something of interest and variety. And within each tune, the drummer is the quickest. Having a change in a drummer is the quickest way to change the sound of a band because we create all the sonic environment for everybody else. What choices we make, are we playing with brushes, with sticks, what feels we do, that has a lot to do with what's going to happen in the band.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it doesn't really change, I think, if you're the band leader so much because we're kind of controlling all that anyway.
It's a good
The
point.
intensity level. Uh, I try to pick a variety of music. I mean, like for instance, when I went into this gig this past weekend, I have a few tunes that are contrafacts. So it's just different melodies on existing chord changes. So it's easy for the guys to get to it. I don't want anything complicated if I'm playing with people for a one night stand
Right.
because I would just want to get to creating music. I don't want people buried in paper. I want them to get down with the caper. You know what I mean?
There's another A
So
bomb. Yeah.
yeah, there we go. But I think it's you try to think of a nice set, and I try to be engaging with the audience. I try to give them a little history about the songs and things like that, and I've been able to work with a bunch of band leaders that were, of course, great musicians, but also very good with their entertainment, or as I like to use the word, edutainment. You can educate your audience in a nice way, give them a
Mm-hmm.
little history about the music, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, if the people don't know anything about music, they'll enjoy the night. And when we put the music in front of us and we start playing, we'll give them, the musicians and all those people, something of value as well. So I think the people that come to mind when I think of that situation are people like Dizzy Gillespie, Cannonball Adderley. I worked a lot with James Moody. They were very good with an audience, and they
Mm-hmm.
created a good vibe. So if you knew nothing about the music, you'd be well entertained. And if you were a musician, there was nobody BSing up there once they put the horn in their mouth. So
Good
you try to bring the
responses.
people in and just create a good energy. We need more of that.
I like that entertainment idea. I mean, at the end of the day, we're entertainers, even if it's the most introspective inside or outside of the changes, and we're still entertainers. You know, somebody has to relate to the audience.
Yeah, I try to do that. I mean, I think it's, and I've also been to gigs where the band leaders don't say a thing, and I have a very satisfying evening because the strength of the music is so strong.
Right.
But that's because I'm coming into it from the inside.
Yeah, we're coming
An
to that.
outsider might get turned off, you know.
Right. Now, I saw
Well,
John
why are
Clayton
they so
once.
serious? Excuse
Yeah,
me?
I saw John Clayton once with his big band, and before he introduced the tune, but before he started, he said that he pointed out some spots in the song to listen to. Listen to the saxophone, said such and such. Guys, let's play a little of that. And he'd kick it off. And then it goes back and it's echoed in the brass. Let's listen to some of that. You know, he gave a little instruction on what you were hearing ahead of time, which was kind of hip if you were uninitiated. The alternative is that if you're a musician, you're going to hear that anyway. But he was trying to bring the music to as many people as he could like that. It was pretty
We
hip.
need to do this. Absolutely. We need to do this. We need to keep this music alive. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's important to try to just create a good vibration, especially with all the craziness going out in the world. This is the one place where people can, you know, leave your, stay on the sunny side of the street, leave your cares and your worries at the doorstep. Let's come
That's
in
right.
and enjoy and have a good time. So,
Just direct your
yeah,
feet
I
to the
had a
sunny
good
side of
time.
the street. Sorry, go ahead.
Amen, baby. Amen. And there was some very talented young musicians down there, and you just want to pass on some positive energy and
Mm-hmm.
encourage them.
And you're getting some from them too. You know, I had a friend who was a musician. His dad was a musician, and he said he told him when he was a young man that he had to play with older musicians to get better. But what he didn't tell him was when he was an older man, he had to play with younger musicians to stay fresh.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big circle going on.
Right, right.
The
So,
young guys need the elders, and the elders like that young energy.
right.
And I think it also makes them feel something that they felt when they were younger. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
I
cool.
would see people like Lionel Hampton on the side of the stage before he was about to go on. He almost looked like he was in a semi coma.
Hmm.
They said, ladies and gentlemen, Lionel Hampton. Gates would come out, he'd start to play. He was like a little kid. And he
Mm-hmm.
was completely energized, and there was no signs of age. And then when he was done, it was like,
Well,
it was wonderful.
haven't we all been sick as dogs? And you had to play the gig, and you know, you just go up there and the music lifts you to somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a healing force for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So where
I
else
mean,
did you go ahead?
well, the thing for me that was strange, and once again another tragedy. While I was down in that area, they had that heinous shooting at that school.
In Nashville.
Yeah, and it's, I'm it just breaks my heart when things like this happen. And a school is supposed to be the safest place for a child. It's supposed to be safe haven.
Yeah, I
So,
don't. And they're
you
throwing
know,
people
I'm,
out of Congress who voted against some kind of laws for. Well, we want to don't want to get political, but that's whatever you think about gun control. Nobody's in favor of children dying in schools.
yeah, and I mean, I'm a firm believer in Second Amendment,
Mm-hmm.
but we that was created back at a time when it took you about 5 minutes to reload a gun.
That's right. That's
Not in
right.
the age of AR-15s and all that stuff. That doesn't need to be at all
Right.
available in the public sector.
I would agree with you. So where else did you go? You went to Asheville too, right?
Yeah, I
Ash to
have some
Nash,
cousins.
Nash to Ash, whatever you said.
That was it. I was in the Ash and the Nash. That's a groovy little town.
A
I'd
very
never been there before. I
little.
thought I was never there, but my cousins took me to a big joint, and I had played there. I couldn't remember the Grove Park Inn.
Oh, I know that place. Yeah. Road blur, man. Road blur.
Yeah,
Haven't you ever gotten back from a tour and you're not quite sure where you went?
Oh yeah. Well, what happens all the time is I'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, is this the place I am? Where am I?
I've had that many
Or
times.
the common thing when you go to the front desk and they say, "What room are you in?" And it's like,
You don't know.
uh,
Yeah. I've had to go ask him at the front desk what room I was in because the card doesn't have it on it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Asheville.
we're more confused than most people, aren't we?
Well, to quote Lenny DeMusio,
Yeah.
I've been in a state of confusement.
Well, I love
That
Lenny
was
DeMuzio.
one of his great words.
Well, I miss some of those
And
characters. So, what you do in Asheville,
oh
though? That's
man,
a nice little artist community.
well, I have a dear cousin who lives in Winston Salem,
Yeah. Okay.
and her son lives in Florida, and they got a place up in Mars Hill, which is just
I don't know it.
about 20 minutes north of Asheville. So it was just great for me to see these people. I hadn't seen them for quite a few years, and it
Hmm.
was just nice to get together with family, especially after all this pandemic nonsense.
Exactly.
So we hung out there.
Did you ever see the movie New York, New York, with Robert De Niro in it? And he's the tenor player. It's a Scorsese movie. But the thing I was going to bring up is they say, "What are you looking for?" And he says, "I'm looking for my major chord." I said, "Well, what's that?" So, well, it's playing the music I love to play. It's making enough money to make ends meet. And it's having somebody and some people and activities and things to share my life with. And I thought that was pretty cool. And a lot of, I think it's easy for musicians, for artists to get sidetracked with just 100% focus and not realize the things like you were just doing, visiting family, riding in the mountains, whatever it takes, whatever you're into that gets you away from all of this, because you have to lead a balanced life, don't you think?
Well, to me, balance is the key. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have a balance, and you have to have experiences in your life that you can try to bring forth through your music.
Mm-hmm.
I
All comes
mean,
around.
yeah, it all comes around. I mean, so many of the things that have inspired me have nothing to do with music. It has to do with nature and life and
Mm-hmm. Well, funny
camaraderie.
you put it that way. I was just taking up camping again and backpacking, going out on these trips by myself, and I was wondering
Yeah,
how
you
come
did an old solo mio
Yo
thing,
Solo
right?
Mio, yeah. How do I relate that to drumming? And I mean, I was out with 35 pounds on my back, and I was on a trail miles away from home, and I got lost, and I had no cell phone reception, and you just have to figure that shit out and get out. You know what I mean? And I found it was self reliance. It was solitude. It was keeping your wits about you. And I figured it out and backed it out and hiked a lot further than I thought. But just being out there with nature by myself was something that somehow intangibly relates to this, you know?
Well, when you sit down on that throne, you have to be in control. You have to have that enough ego to be on the throne, but you have to be humble enough to deal with the situations. And what does that tell you to do? And at the end of the day, nobody's going to mess with us more than ourselves.
It's a good
So the
point.
whole thing is learning how to relax. Like you said, you got lost, but you evidently got found because here you are.
Yeah, right. It was up to me to find myself and figure it out. But
Did you have? I mean, we know which direction the sun goes. We know it's going to set in the west. Do you have?
I
Maybe
had
you
all
had a
that figured
compass.
out. Yeah, I had all
Yeah,
that figured out. I just had to backtrack, but and hike a lot further than I thought. But the idea that you're out, that's just something that worked for me. I guess is what I'm getting at. It doesn't matter what it
yeah,
is to you. Could be something other than drums, though. You know,
absolutely.
you have
Being self-reliant. Believing, having you've done it before, so you're aware of being out there, and you have to have that confidence that things are going to be okay.
yeah, that's right, and just stay within yourself, just like you're playing. Now we also have coming
Yeah.
up in May the Chicago Drum Show, which I've been to many times. Not since the pandemic, but I understand you're going to go this time for the first time.
Yeah, I've never been out there, and I got a bunch of free time, and I've been on. I was even asked to go out and do something at one of them years ago, but I was busy. But
Mm-hmm.
this coming year, I'm free, and I'm curious to see what it's all about. I'm also one of the tipping points was that I understand there's going to be 8 independent cymbal manufacturers there,
Yep,
and I'm
that's what's piquing my interest as well.
yeah, and being somebody who's been involved with Zilge and has have had a long association with Mr. Paul Francis, I'm
Who's going
just
to be
curious
there?
what's going on. I see Jerry Brown's going to be there. He's a wonderful drummer.
Yeah,
Paul Wertigo's
I'll
going
pull
to
this
be there.
up. Let me go through that. Yeah, there's some great drummers there. If people don't know, the Chicago Drum Show has been going on for I don't know 30 years. Oh, it says 32nd annual Chicago Drum Show by this guy Rob
Yeah,
Cook, who is a really great devotee of the whole industry. He's got a lot of books out on various drum companies and drummers, and this has been a labor of love for him. And he keeps it reasonable. It's $20 a day. Those are all the people. Let's see what's the website. We're at rebeats.com. That's the name of his company, and
right.
he's got this idea that I mean I'm excited because I don't know a lot of these guys. I was in the cymbal industry, and a lot of these have come up since then. But these are guys. There's Paul. He's a veteran, but these are guys who've been making cymbals on their own. I know Matt Nolan. I know a few of these guys, and they're going to
Les
talk about.
Monroe, wow.
And Les is usually, oftentimes there. I think he's from Chicago. There's your clinicians, Les, and then Gary Estridge. I don't know if people know him. He's Ringo's curator of drums and knows more about Ringo's drums than Ringo does. And a dear pal of his, and he works with Ringo on some charitable projects that he'll be talking about there. Ringo has a Lotus Foundation that he supports, and
Hopefully he'll show up.
yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath waiting on that one. Anyway, it's a Stone Groove, and there's the schedule of everything. It's all on his site. But as an artist, as well, I love when I'm there. Let me get back to this. I love all the great, Catalano's there from Ludwig. He's not with Ludwig anymore, but Bunny Carlos is a Ludwig aficionado. Um, a lot of custom guys are there. Ron Dinette's usually there. Steve Maxwell's there with all of his Craviato stuff. And the more people you know in the industry, the more you're going to find there. And it's just a Stone Groove, man. It's a hang. And very loose and relaxed and cordial and open, and nobody's trying to get a deal or sell stuff to dealers, and you can also buy some great gear too. So I heartily recommend it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to go, especially since I know you're going.
I'm looking forward to it. I when I was down in Nashville, I went to Forks.
Mm-hmm.
I went to this place Nelson's. I went to another place Drum Supply, and I just really enjoyed being in a drum shop with nothing but drums. And I remembered as a youngster going to Frank Ippolito's
Mm-hmm.
that used to be on 8th Avenue in Manhattan. And it just gave me like a warm and fuzzy feeling, like back to my youth. And I ran into some other drummers there that I had never met, who I had heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just nice to feel the sense of community and camaraderie there.
There is that. There's a great
And
sense of community there. And now Forks, if
yeah,
people don't know, was Gary Forkham had Forks Drum Closet, and he sold the whole building, and Steve Maxwell bought in, and he has a store in New York, uh, Times Square area, and one in Chicago, and now he's got Forks in Nashville. So he's turned into quite a huge player in this game.
well, actually, Steve, I believe, sold it, the New York one, to Jed, who was running it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, good. That's new
It's
information.
got a new name now. While I was away, they had like an opening party for it.
Oh, so that just happened. Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know that. I didn't know that.
yeah, down on 30th Street, I believe.
Oh,
It
okay.
used to be up on Times Square. Then he went down to 30th Street,
Right,
and
right. It was near where Barry
I
used to
mean, there
be.
was so many places.
So many
There was
what?
so much. Barry had Drummers World. Joe
Mm-hmm.
Cazares used to have Modern Drum Shop. There
Mm-hmm.
was big drum departments at Manny's, at Sam Ash. I mean,
I think
and
so.
now, it's less and less. So when I get a chance to go to one of those places, it just feels very good to me, and
Me too.
I
When I,
like it.
when I had my cymbal company, one of the reasons I sold and got out is because you usually try to build a clientele over years, and what we found was dealers were closing faster than we could add them. They were all going out of business for one reason or another, or selling. We have a big store here. Ken Stanton was in, I think he had 5 or 6 stores, been around for 70 years or something. And he sold to music and arts, and probably was a great move for him. Atlanta Pro Percussion
Yeah.
closed. We had another one that closed. Well, what's going on with all that? I don't. I'm not. I've been 8 years now. Yeah, 8 years out of the industry, and I don't know what's going on with sales and support for drum clinic. Do you do any clinics anymore? Very seldom, right? I mean, you did one at a school just recently, but not the drum shop kind, right?
Things have really changed, man. The whole climate of our times is different. The template is different. Um, Look what we're doing. We're doing something online. This whole online world has
Mm-hmm.
become so pervasive. Uh, I was speaking with a friend the other day. They said three people are running the world: Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk.
Well, there's the,
And
it. Go ahead.
I'm not a. On one hand, the convenience of something like Amazon is incredible. But on the negative side, so many independent operators have been just swarmed over and absorbed by all this,
Right.
where you can't compete. I had a friend that had a little music store up near where I used to live, and he said, what I have to pay for product is what Amazon is selling them for,
Right.
because they're ordering thousands and he's ordering one or two.
Walmart
And
syndrome,
it's
same
like,
kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
it's
what the
kind of
answer is to
sad.
that. Yeah, it is. I don't know what the answer to that is. For a while, we don't want to get too deep in the business part of it, but the businesses introduced MAP, they called it, minimum advertised pricing. so that, like if you buy an iPhone, it's the same everywhere you go. There aren't any sales really. It's all controlled by Apple. And the Supreme Court decided that that was okay because there were competing products out there. Like I said, I don't know how deep you want to get, but now it used to be patently illegal for that. And NAM was sued and went through a whole thing about all that and got out the other end of it. But the Supreme Court chimed in and said, no, we don't have, it's okay to have what they call vertical price restraints because the customer still has choices. You don't, if Apple controls their stuff and it's too much for you, you can go buy somebody else's phone or somebody else's computer. There's competition that way. But it really blows out the little guys, you know?
Yeah.
Even if they're selling
But
to the public at the same price, the dealers aren't making any money on the spread and they can't stay open. On the other hand,
but
I've
it
ordered
was
stuff
just,
from Amazon and got it in 3 hours.
yeah. I mean, the convenience factor is incredibly great. Uh, but I'm a direct contact individual. I like to be in the room. If I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to buy something, I like to see it. I want to know it.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically with things that are involved with my craft. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked to play a cymbal before I buy it. It's hard for
Absolutely.
me to buy it um,
But more and more symbols are
online.
being sold online through sound and video files. That surprised all
Sure.
the dealers, and it surprised me too. When we first got going,
Yeah.
2004 or so, Symbols Only came up, and he was selling them out of
Right.
New York, and he just had sound files, and he would sell more symbols of ours in a week than most of the best dealers in the world did in a couple of months. I mean, he was just moving
Well, you're
symbols,
reaching thousands of people.
and they can't
You're
get to a
reaching
store.
thousands.
And when they do get to the store and they want a 22-inch ride cymbal, there might be two. And this Tony would have 50 of them, What brand, what thickness, what model, what do you want? And then Jim Pettit, at Memphis Drum Shop with my cymbal, and up the ante
Sure.
and started doing video. And his sales took off
Right.
with that stuff. But
Yeah.
it's a different world. On the other hand, if you buy a drum set, if you're looking at 3 drum sets in a store, you're not going to set them up. They're not going to let you set all 3 of them up and play them, and you know. And
Yeah.
then there's the whole world of electronics, like behind me. I don't think most drum shops are up to date on that. They don't know how to use them or they don't speak that language, and they're outselling drums. Oddly
Yep.
enough,
It's a different time. I'm starting, to feel like I'm an analog relic.
you're not though. Here we are. We're online here. You know.
No, it's good. I mean, I think what's important was, and something that I saw when I was down there at the school for young musicians, they need to be around people that know how to do it better than them and just try to be encouraging to them,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's something which it's like, how do people make you feel when you meet them? How do they treat you as a human being? Try to set something positive and
Mm-hmm.
help them out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just trying to pay forward. A lot of the elders had patience for me when I was a youngster, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know much, but they gave me some encouragement, and they would usually pull me aside and hit me to what was not happening.
Right. That's
And
the
I
best way
always
to do it.
learned more when I got
Yeah.
fired from a gig than when I got hired.
I don't know any drummer who hasn't been fired from something. And
Yeah,
you make it a learning experience and move on. And not everybody's
totally.
meant to play
Don't
with
get me
everybody,
wrong.
It could be it was just the wrong pairings of people. Uh, you know,
Hey, man.
everybody's had their asses handed to them on the drum set before.
And I always learned a lot more from that. And
Right.
I told all these kids, I said, remember, don't be afraid. How can you play if you have fear? And if you make a mistake, nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to get hurt. And if you know how to work that mistake, it could be the hippest thing you do all night if you
That's
know
right.
how to swim through it.
You ever hear that Erskine story? I think it was George Gaber he was studying with in Indiana, and he was really nervous. And Gaber says, "Now I want you to play this next piece of music, and I want you to screw up everything. Play it as wrong as you possibly can. Really? Okay. So he goes in, he inverts all the dynamics and screws up the thing and messes it all up. He says, yeah, that was pretty bad. Now look out the window. What do you see? People just going about their lives, daily, sun shining, everything's normal. Nothing changed, man. It's not that big a deal. You make a mistake and you keep going.
Kudos to Peter for writing that book. That's a very good book. No more Beethoven or no Beethoven,
No
whatever.
Beethoven. Yeah,
It's
right.
I recommend it to all young musicians
Hmm.
and people that are interested in the music. Read it
It's about all
because
this stuff.
he's
It's not exercises. It's not written notation. It's life as a drummer.
oh no, this is Peter is one of the successful prodigies.
Hmm. That's a
He
good
came on
point.
the scene as a kid, and he had appropriate guidance, and he also had the wherewithal and everything to keep it on a good path. And
Hmm.
it's a wonderful document because you understand all the realities of what goes on in the process. Another great book is the Sonny Rollins book, Saxophone Colossus, which is a biography,
I haven't read
which
it yet.
deals a lot with Sonny and also the realities of the times. And just amazing how you have to deal with the things that you have to deal with. And like I said before, nobody can mess with you more than yourself.
That's very true. There's another cool book that Ed Soph was mentioning the other day to me. It's called Kick It, A Social History of the Drum Kit by Matt Brennan. Now, he's been on the show. There's an interview with him. But the interesting
Oh,
thing about
great.
it is that it's a
Is that
social.
Boo? That Blakey there?
Yeah, it's Blakey on the cover. Sorry, I'm trying to get it on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know that shot. And,
There we go. No cavities.
and it's about the history of the drum set from a social cultural perspective, not necessarily who invented what when, but what it meant culturally. It's pretty hip, pretty hip. All
I'm,
right, man. I
I'm
got a
gonna
couple. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to get that one.
That's cool. I've got a couple little shorts I want to run by you, just two of them because they're
Uh oh.
two different ways of looking at a click track. And let me just play them both, and then we'll talk for a second. Here's Danny Seraphin.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate perfect. I'm tired of perfect. I mean, there's a place for perfect. There's a place for sequencers. There's a place for drum machines. There's a place for click tracks. And I would never doubt that. And I think a click track, clicks are great practice tools. And some people swear by them. And so therefore, the drummer has to play to a click on every song. And I thought to myself, God, I would hate that. I would absolutely hate that. And because it limits. It's like it's the same every night. And there's no way there can be any spontaneity. There just can't be, So, and that's true. So many bands now are playing with tracks.
Clicks became my friend very early in my career because in movies and jingles, very soon after I was in LA, they started using more clicks. And so I was very familiar with clicks and playing with clicks. So when sequencers came in and having to play perfectly, I was really well adjusted and was very comfortable playing either on top of it, right with it, or behind it, and not being afraid. I always thought of the click as my friend. So I really loved playing with it because it took the pressure off of having to be perfect. In the early days, we do a jingle or something like that. They'd count off the tempo, and you had to play 59 seconds exactly on the spot with no click. But as soon as they started using clicks throughout a whole song, and they weren't worried about you rushing it because they were editing so much, it took all the pressure off. It was easy for me. So I immediately adjusted and thought when they had the click, it was going to be a great day.
Oh, pretty interesting there. And I have some ideas, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, in my world that I've been involved in, I think I've had to play with a click maybe 5 times in my life. I know other drummers where maybe 5 times in their life they don't play with a click. It's a whole other story. I mean, I was just down in Nashville, and it's Pocket City down there. and it's the whole thing with the click and everything. I believe I I respect both things that were said here, both points of view. I would tend to agree with Harvey because you want to have the click be your friend, not an adversary. And like anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. If you've never done it, it's new. That's why it's hard. If you do it all the time, you're going to be able to be unconsciously competent with that. And he brought up great things. He said, they want me to be on it. They want me to be in front of it. They want me to get behind it. I'm okay with that. And it takes the pressure off. And I've heard people play pretty freely within the click because they've been doing it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends that do Broadway. They love it when the click is there because then the conductor can't be saying, "Oh, you're rushing, you're dragging here."
Mm-hmm.
It kind of helps to neutralize the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mostly playing jazz music, and you generally do not play with a click. Generally, what you're doing is you're playing with others in real time. And we can go back and listen to records that are part of our history that we love deeply, and we can hear, oh, and especially when the CD came out, I was able to hear, oh man, I can't believe they dragged that tune.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't believe it rushed that much. But at the time, you didn't care because it felt so damn good. It was another story. Now, when you're dealing with movies and sequences and things like that, that's another dynamic. And I think
Exactly.
you have to become friendly with that. And I think for a young drummer today, if you're coming up, you want it to be your friend. You don't want it to be an adversary. I
Right.
think what you want to try to do is, when we were young, we used to start a metronome maybe for an exercise to get something going. And you kind of try to use it as a guide. I think you have to try to develop your internal time because that's what, at the end of the day, how does it feel? Some people have perfect time, but it doesn't feel good. Then other people don't have perfect time and it feels great.
That's right.
And you got to know how to bob and weave. You got to know when to pull back the reins. You got to know when to dig in the